Okay, we're going to get started, and we'd like to start, please, tonight with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Good evening and welcome. Our forum tonight is being sponsored by the Oldham County GOP and the Liberty Ladies Republican Club, and this is to provide you, the community, with an opportunity to meet your candidates for school board and then get some understanding and some information so that you can make an informed decision when you go to the polls in November. We'd like to thank Judge Vogel and the Fiscal Court for providing us with this space tonight. It's just unbelievable. So thank you. And we'd also like to thank Jay McDowell, who is going to be our technical director. So you may hear from him as well. All the candidates, regardless of their political affiliation, were invited to participate tonight. Joe Dennis won't be with us until a little bit later. He had some dad duties to perform. His son had some kind of a senior night or something or other. He thought it was important to be there. So he'll be here after a while. Kate Farrell, though, had another engagement, so she won't be able to join us, but she did leave some information outside in the foyer on the tables if you're interested in looking at any of that. Okay, I am Eileen Polly. I will be the facilitator for this evening, and this is Dawn Schuler. Down here, she's our timekeeper, and we are responsible for keeping things on track and for guarding the process. So let me tell you a little bit about what the process is going to be. This is not a debate. Everybody? Not a debate. It is a forum. It's questions and answers, okay? And so there won't be any time for rebuttals and things like that. This is just really to get as much information out as we can. We got so many questions from the community, and thank you so much, anybody who submitted 1 or 2 or 5. And we just want to make sure that we get to as many as we can. So, but just like the bios that are in the program, the candidates wrote their own bios, and all the questions that we're going to use are going to be from the community. So the committee, the GOP, and the Liberty Ladies did not write these questions or anything like that. We just organized them. So the first round is going to be questions that we're going to ask. Every candidate will answer that round of questions, okay? They've all been given the questions in advance so they could prepare and be more succinct and on time with their answers because they will be timed. They also, the second round then will be specific questions that were sent in for specific candidates because some of the questions did come in and they did have somebody's name on it. So we're going to have them answer those questions as well. The third round, we're going to invite the audience to come to the podium and answer or ask any questions that maybe they didn't hear answered before, okay? If you have a burning desire to be on YouTube, you can come down to the front and ask a question. All right. The final round will be a final statement from each of the candidates. So we want to make sure that we get to that. All right. Now, in order to make the most of our time and get out of here at a reasonable hour, because after all, it is a school night. Thank you. I had laughter written in there. So thanks for that. Anyway, we want to make sure that we have some ground rules and we've got some housekeeping issues just to go over very briefly. So please show respect for all involved, okay? What does it say around here? Be kind, okay? So that includes the audience, the candidates, me, John, everybody. All right. Help maintain our timetable by avoiding interruptions and hold your questions and remarks till later, till we get to our third round. Then we won't be taking an official break. So if you need a break, then you can go out the doors, turn to the left. There's a little hallway down there, and you can find the restrooms down there. Now, does everybody have one of these? Okay, this is the big one. Turn them off or to silent, to vibrate or stun, whichever you prefer, okay, so that we're not interrupted. We appreciate that. If you need to take a call, just please step out into the hallway to do that. So hopefully we can all agree to abide by these rules, and if not, we do have a few bouncers in the back of the room. We'll call on if need to. All right? Okay, so with that, then we're going to get started, and I'm going to go down to the podium, and we'll begin our questioning with our candidates. Are you ready? I say ready. Okay. Our first question, and please raise your hands. You can all do this at one time. Please raise your hands if you have any children in the Oldham County school system. Okay, just about everybody, or have had children in the Oldham County school system. Okay, great. All right, now we're going to start, and we're going to start down here, of course. We're going to be District 2 and alphabetically. All right, so prior to running for a school board seat or being on the board, what has been your involvement in the Oldham County schools? How often do you attend school board meetings?
So my name is Jessica Crenshaw. I started out as a South Oldham Middle School student. I graduated from South Oldham High School. I also worked at the Jungle at Kenwood, a senior year of college. After about 8 years of teaching outside of the district, I ended up, for the last 3 years at Oldham County Middle School. At the end of last year, I stepped away. I've also led various student and staff leadership groups and attended a variety of sporting events and concerts. My husband and I have 2 children at Camden Station Elementary, and I've attended board meetings, especially when I worked in the district, and if I can't attend, I usually catch it live stream or watch the recording.
Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Hunley. I have a junior at South Oldham High School and a 7th grader and an 8th grader at South Oldham Middle School. And I have my oldest graduated from South Oldham High School last year. Sounds like a bird chirping, sorry. I did not swallow a dog toy. I've been PTA and PTO president at both Camden Station Elementary School and South Oldham Middle School for multiple years. I've been an SBDM parent rep at South Oldham Middle School for multiple years. I started a Blessings in a Backpack program at South Oldham Middle School, and we transitioned that also over to South Oldham High School, and South Oldham High School is the only high school in the state of Kentucky that has a Blessings in a Backpack program that feeds our hungry kids on the weekends and breaks and during the summer. I've also been Volunteer of the Year at both Camden and South Oldham Middle School multiple years, and I go to every board meeting. Okay, thank you.
My name's Scott Ramser. I don't have as impressive as a background as involvement, so I appreciate your all's involvement in the past there as well. I have 2 kids in Crestwood Elementary, and used to go have lunch with them, sometimes on a regular basis, but during the pandemic, I lost that opportunity, so that's one of the things I'm somewhat upset about. And I try to attend as many board meetings as I can. And my participation in the board meetings really began around the start of COVID.
Thank you. My name is Andrea Nykirk, and I have been a teacher in the education system for 30 years. I have been a lead teacher. I've been department chair. I've been the teacher rep for the SBDM Council, all of those for many, many years. I served on a multitude of committees at the district level and at the school level. I have two daughters that attended K through 12. They got their education in Oldham County. And of course, I was supportive of all of their clubs and organizations and sports that they were involved in as well during their time. And since being appointed last September, I've attended every board meeting that I could, except for two that I had other planned engagements. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. My name is Lisa Paris, and I have 6 children. 2 are seniors. I have a junior, a sophomore, an 8th grader, and a 6th grader. I think that's 6. I have been involved in schools for 17 years. I've been a PT board member for 5.5 years, PTA. I have been an advisory board member for 2.5 years. I have been a paraprofessional and a volunteer in the classrooms for 2 to 5 years, depending on which school you want to talk about. I have been Orton Gillingham certified and worked for 2.5 years in a private school for kids with dyslexia, teaching them how to read. And I'm at Oldham County Schools 3 or 4 times a week, driving kids here and there, picking kids up and taking things to them. And I also have had a lot of interface with the principals, counselors, teachers of the school, and I've gone to every single meeting for the last 2 years except for 4.
Thank you.
My name is Carly Clem, and I have 2 boys that go to Goshen Elementary. My involvement in the Oldham County Schools, I'm in my 3rd year on the executive board for our PTO program at Goshen. And then as far as attending board meetings, they've all been virtually so far.
Hi, good evening. My name's Pat Kehoe. I have 2 children. One graduated from Oldham County High School. The other one attends Oldham County. She's a senior. Previous experience on the school board, I had my kids had an array of education from Catholic school to Jefferson County Traditional School to Oldham County. I was on the St. Stephen's School Board for 4 years. I was on the St. Stephen's PTO for 2 years. I was a volunteer for the Alderman Traditional for 2 years as well. And I've been on the board here 5 of my 6 years that I lived in Oldham County.
Devin Gunderson Lindemeyer. I got a lot of names, so I usually just go by Devin. If you see my signs, that's what I have on there. I have been in Oldham County Schools for a long time. I did go to Oldham County Middle and Oldham County High. Ms. Nykirk was one of my teachers. But after graduating, I did become involved with Operation Parent and was a board member there for 10 years from the founding time at South Oldham High up until 2015. I felt that I still needed to be involved in the schools and was invited to volunteer through the Oldham County Educational Foundation. And there, the volunteer work became a passion of mine and ended up becoming a role where I became the Director of Development. So I've helped raise and spearhead $140,000 of funds that have come into our school through that nonprofit or to our schools. Very proud of my service with OSEF because I've gotten to learn a lot about the budgeting, the way things work with the schools. I'm also a current SBDM parent rep at Buckner Elementary, where I have 3 students. There are 7, 8, and 9-year-old girls, and I attend board meetings when invited.
All right, our next question. We're going to start with Suzanne. Give you a break. Okay? And this will be for everyone again. Do you believe biological males should be allowed to use biological female restrooms or locker room facilities or vice versa? So tell us why or why not.
I feel that I do not feel it's appropriate. I have 4 daughters, and I have 2 of them play volleyball, and I can't imagine what the swimmers went through at the college level, having a biological male in the locker room with them, and I don't feel like the majority should have to cater to the minority in this situation. And I feel like accommodations can be made for everyone to feel comfortable. And we do have single stall bathrooms in all of our schools that children can use if necessary.
Okay, thank you. Full with the microphone.
I'm trying to not give feedback. Anyway, yeah, I completely agree with that. I would say that I absolutely disagree with the decision to accept the funding for Title IX, which allowed the policy or non-policy to be in place. And I would say that we need to either return the money or that we need to file for a federal injunction. So I absolutely agree with what Ms. Hundley has said there, though, as well.
Thank you.
Well, I'm not quite sure that it's about my personal belief system. I do think it's about the safety of our kids and whatever that looks like. It doesn't matter, I guess I'm thinking of all children and what they have gone through. And so I'm kind of, I can't say that I completely agree or disagree. It's more like I have to make sure that all kids are safe. And to what length do we go to ensure their safety? That's the most important thing. And so to my knowledge, I'm not sure that we've really had that issue, and I'm not saying we don't face those issues. But our admin team works really, really hard at providing a lot of different accommodations and to include, single-use restrooms. And so I think that is something that we need to consider.
Okay, thank you. And welcome, Joe.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you in just a few minutes, okay? Let you get settled. Okay, Lisa?
For the question, and I just want to say that there are accommodations for children that feel the need to use a restroom that is not their biological match. I don't have a strong opinion about it either way. I have children that are athletes. I myself was an athlete in school, and I have seen in Oldham County kids changing in a locker room setting of both sexes, and it was perfectly normalized. But the parents in this community are against it. And everybody that I have sourced, including the LGBTQ community, is against having bathrooms that can be shared by XX and XY students. So I don't know where this idea is even coming from. I think we should reject it wholeheartedly, and we should forcefully reject it. It didn't come from Oldham County, and Oldham County has spoken. Parents have stated what they feel, and I think that should be respected, as it should be in all things concerning students.
Thank you.
I absolutely do not believe that biological males and females should share restrooms at school. This is first and foremost a safety and privacy issue, in my opinion, and it opens the doors to just a plethora of other things. Our kids have to attend school, and allowing other biological genders to trade bathrooms is unnecessary and a violation to our children. Secondary to these safety and privacy issues, it's also a behavioral issue. I have two little boys, and we'll hear of things that happen behaviorally in the bathrooms in elementary school. And I know this just gets worse as you get into middle and high school. So we're pushing those issues on our teachers who already are spread thin as far as behavioral. So it just causes a lot of problems across the board. Thank you.
From a personal and parent perspective, I'm totally against it. From a school board member, I got to be careful how I decide these issues. One thing we cannot do is discriminate. It's against state and federal laws, so we got to be careful with any type of plan that we come up with. However, I've had this discussion with our attorney and with the superintendent on how can we accommodate these transgender children and make exceptions for them. Like Ms. Hundley had said, there's available single stall restrooms for their use, and I think we need to implement some type of policy where we can have these children go into a single stall for their privacy.
I agree with Mr. Kehoe here that as a parent of 3 little girls, I don't want my little girls going into a restroom with people that are not the same biological sex. However, I raise my children to love everybody and to realize that everybody is different. And so I feel like accommodations can be made for those, but it doesn't need to be at the sacrifice of the safety of the group.
Want to answer that question?
Yes, I absolutely. That's loud. I absolutely do not believe males should be using girls' bathrooms. Period. I spoke about this at a council meeting. This is a ticking time bomb, folks. We already know this occurred in Loudoun County, Virginia. 2 schools, 2 separate girls got raped in their bathrooms because they allowed boys in them. We know this is an issue in our school. It occurred. I spoke to a female that felt violated because the boy was using the girl's bathroom. I appreciate the board members saying we need to develop a policy. What are we waiting for? We waiting for a victim to occur? I just don't agree with it. I promise you, the first day in office, I will have a policy presented to the board. If that board rejects it, I'll seek a federal injunction through our attorney, like 20 attorney generals did in Tennessee just a few months ago. Last resort, make all the bathrooms single use.
Thank you. Let's. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, you down there.
Round robin.
Oh yeah, you.
So to weigh in, so I believe that the best learning happens when all children feel safe, and I feel like we're here for kids and we're here for education. And so I understand though that this is a pretty controversial issue, and it's on the mind, especially as rumors have been circulating around throughout the past few months. I also feel like it can't always be a black and white issue because it's a public school that services a variety of students and families from various backgrounds. And so the way that I tend to approach problems is by asking questions. And so that limits a black and white answer. And that is really a catalyst for creativity and innovation when we come together and we question things and we have people coming together and bringing different ideas. And so we might ask questions about single-use bathrooms or the redesigning of inclusive bathrooms or whatever it may be, but it cannot just be a yes or a no, because in that case we would leave other people out.
Okay, thank you. Somebody's microphone not on. Somebody's microphone is not on, so you have to have a red button, your red light on the button. Okay,
I'm colorblind, so.
Okay, then it would be green.
Could be.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to the next question. And Scott, I guess we'll start with you. Do you or did you support mandatory masking of children in schools? Why or why not? Sure. Do you or did you support mandatory masking of children in schools? Why or why not?
I do not support masking of children in schools. I would prefer to have a parent's choice. I recognize that there is large concern from all parties involved as to the safety and the concern from COVID, but I, from the beginning, have been opposed to masking our kids.
I absolutely do not believe in masking the kids. We know we have at-risk kids, teachers, family members, and we need to accommodate them. However, overall, we do not need to mandate masking for all the kids. I'll tell you what I saw in the schools. I saw children so scared to lower their mask, they vomited in their mask. Now, how safe is that? I saw kids demoralized by staff for having their mask lower. Like my son has asthma. He has to pull that mask down at times. And the same staff would go behind closed doors and then take their mask off. I saw adults and kids use the same mask every single day in the schools. Not sanitary. I saw a mask so saliva covered up, it was unsanitary. And ask yourself, common sense. How do we allow kids to eat lunch next to each other without masks and it's safe? And then they have to put the mask back on.
Okay, thank you.
I think we faced some unprecedented times. I don't think we had the knowledge at the very beginning. Things were changing daily. And, we had to rely on medical partners from the schools to determine the safety of the children. And based on, some of the data that we had and the vaccination availability, it was best to remain in masks at that time. And I need to make sure we remember that every day we were in school last year. And from that, they were able to interact with the teachers, their friends. They made academic gains. Our ACT scores went up by 0.8. I mean, I know that seems trivial, but, all this wouldn't have happened if we weren't in school every single day.
Thank you. Lisa?
Again, for the question, I was activated by the masks. I've been activated by the school system for a long time, but forced masking my children made me nauseous every day. And I protested, and I went to board meetings, and I begged them to listen to parents as we fought hard and begged and came time and time again asking them not to mask our children because we knew what the problems were. We knew how unsanitary it was. We knew what the problems were going to be. And with my kids specifically, some of my kids have been traumatized, what it was doing to them. And we saw it and we had to deal with it every single day. And what we had was an unresponsive board that would not listen to us. And we are ultimately the number one stakeholder as parents. And that is a big mistake. If you're not going to listen to the parents in a case like this with the masks, and there are many other issues you need to be listening to parents about, then there needs to be parents in charge.
Thank you.
I support parental choice with masks. If I choose to mask my kids or not mask my kids, I think that's our choice as parents. Our family has seen harmful effects from masking our kids. We called, emailed, attended board meetings to advocate against this. At the time, we had an incoming kindergartner who was trying to learn to read and write, wearing a mask every day in school, couldn't see their teacher's mouth. That makes learning very difficult. We also had a second grader who was newly diagnosed with ADHD, who had social issues due to masking every day. There was a time where you could not wear a mask anywhere, but you had to wear one at school, and that just did not make sense to me. I believe masking in schools was ineffective and caused harm to our children. Thank you.
Well, I'm partially deaf, and I went through years and years of speech therapy. I had a parent that emailed me and was concerned about her child not being able to read lips with the mask, and I completely understand. When I voted for this, it was a very difficult decision. Did a lot of thinking. I even asked the health director the night he showed up at the meeting, and I said, "Does an N95? Would you approve the N95 mask for us to vote on instead of the regular mask?" And he would not approve that. He would not give us funding for the N95. It's a proven fact that the other masks don't work efficiently, and the N95s do. The first time I voted for mask, every other time I voted against mask when it came up to vote.
As a parent, I think I should be able to choose what my children do or don't, but I also recognize that I think we had very competent board members, and at the time we're having to make decisions that sometimes had money tied to them or other things. They just wanted our kids in school, and I wanted my kids in school. And so at that time, I would have let my kids go to school wearing masks if that meant they were there. That's not what I liked, and in fact, we did have an exemption from our doctor for our children to not wear masks. In the end, my kids chose to put the masks on because they felt like aliens without them on. That worries me as a parent as to what they felt like without a mask. I knew they weren't effective, but I also knew that our board was doing what they could to get our kids in the school. So I believe it should be a parent choice, and I don't think they worked. I think our board knows more now, and they had their hands tied by the health department.
So this is a challenging question to answer because it begs for an answer in the present while addressing an issue in the past. When I taught history, it was hard to convey the challenges that people faced during a historic event because we had the ending and we were analyzing events based on what we already know. I feel like leaders back when the pandemic began were charged with figuring out how to carry on while also making sure that everybody feels safe. And I truly believe the best learning happens when both children and staff feel safe. And so, again, knowing what we know now, how could we potentially approach it differently if a similar issue were to arise? Either way, I believe it's important to follow the guidance of experts in the field while also self-checking ourselves along the way to assure that we're in line with all safety protocols, which I believe many leaders did and did the best with what they had back when it began.
Thank you.
So I put yes and no on this one. I put yes when it was necessary to stay in person because I would like to remind everybody back in March, April, and May of 2020 when we said, I don't care if my kid has to wear a hazmat suit as long as they can go back in person in front of a teacher. Or I don't care if my kid has to wear scuba gear as long as they can get back in person in front of a teacher. And we kept our kids in person as much as we possibly could. Patrick and I both voted no on a vote because we wanted masks off of all of the kids and not just the high school kids at one point. And I also voted no when the board, Patrick and I again, both voted no to give the superintendent power to make that decision because I felt like we were elected to make those decisions as board members and would have liked to have taken the mask off our kids sooner for sure. And I do feel like they should have been optional longer than they were.
Thank you.
I've already answered.
Okay. Let's go to our next candidate then. We'll start with you, Mr. Dennis. Did you support the recent tax increase, and what are you planning to do with the 4% tax increase?
Well, I don't support it, but I believe bottom line is we need cutaways. We need to cut some of the programs that teachers believe are not working, like Mastery Connect, Achieve 3000, the SEL program we're using. I worked in government for 25 years. We had $10,000 left at the end of the year. We would use that money and ask for more. So before we raise taxes, we need to cut out the waste. I think we need to ask some questions. How did we not see inflation coming? I know we all saw inflation coming. We felt it at the grocery store. How did the schools miss it? How did we start 2 weeks into the school year in the hole? What did we do with surplus from last year? What did we do with all the unpaid salaries from last year? And what are we doing with unpaid salaries this year? I have solutions to all these questions, or to this, but I can't get to it because I don't have enough time. I'm sorry.
Teacher salaries were really of the utmost concern last year, and we were committed to doing what was absolutely possible to give them a raise, much deserved raise. We were able to give a stipend in December of $1,500, which actually cost $3 million. And reviewing budgets and doing line items is very difficult, and I would welcome people to do that because I think that that's really important to figure out where the waste is. And so it was best to support a 4% tax raise, 3% for the step, and 1% for, or 3% raise and 1% for the step. Keep in mind that 85% of all of our budget goes to salaries. And what I do here is that what absolutely makes sense is making sure that we tell the community where we are saving, not let them guess.
Okay, thank you. Lisa?
Thank you for the question. Thank you very much. The first things that I would do with all the extra money in the $143 million budget that's up from $118 million the year before is do 17-to-1 student-teacher ratio classrooms across the board if possible. And I would look for redundancies and places to cut until we can make that happen, because we all know, everyone knows, all educators know that is best for teachers, best for academic excellence. And that's been proven time and time again. It's even been proven within the walls of Oldham County schools. And I can talk more about that later. I'm not going to stop there. I think we should be doing free and reduced free lunches for everyone, because across the country last year when they did that, math scores jumped 16% sometimes as much as 21% in some school districts. And everyone says that it was tied to the free lunches, and I think we should look into doing that as well. And I do think the teachers should be paid what they're worth, but I also think part of helping teachers is giving them an environment where they can do their job with autonomy.
Go ahead and finish your sentence.
Autonomy and pleasure, and with a manageable sized classroom. Thank you.
I'm supportive of tax increases that are needed. The last thing we want is a district that is not properly funded. That being said, I think there are many questions as to why such a significant tax increase is needed. Have we mismanaged funds? Are we covering a deficit? The board is currently audited, but not in a way that highlights wasteful spending. Those are questions that I would answer as a board member for the community, and I think the board owes our community transparency as to why those tax increases are needed. Thank you.
So for the record, I voted just for one tax increase since I've been on the board. I voted no about the recent one. There is a formula a lot of people don't know about or may know about by now. It's called the SEEK formula. And when a tax increase comes through the county, we only get a certain percent of that money back to the school system. The rest goes to other counties that are in need more so than us. So we're a SEEK loser when it comes to tax increases. I think we had enough money in our contingency this year not to raise the taxes. I spoke with the superintendent about that. We had some disagreements, Mr. Superintendent, and we talked about it. What the tax increase is going for, as Miss Hunley and Miss Nykirk said, teacher salary, that's a big one. The teachers' bonuses, and 8% increase this year for SR&O salaries for the protection of our kids.
Business owner and a taxpayer in the county, I don't support the most recent tax increase, but if it's here, I want to see it used for academic achievement and for teacher recruitment and retainment. I'm kind of confused by the questions that we have tonight because not very many of them actually focus on academics, and I think that is the number one thing that we have to be concerned about in our schools, and that's what I care about as a parent. So I'd like to see that money go towards having the appropriate number of teachers in our classrooms, student-teacher ratio, not having virtual teachers when it's pretty difficult to recruit teachers right now. Just being on SBDM Council, I can see that. So I'd like to see the money go to that. I do like that it is going towards teacher salaries. But as a creative person, a business owner, I'm really good at moving numbers around and figuring out how to make more of less. And I hope to do that.
So public schools, like police departments and fire departments, are publicly funded because they're seen as a necessary service to have a progressive society. But taxes also come with a lot of stipulations. So you might ask, well, I see these numbers on paper. Why don't they use this number to pay for teacher salaries or other things? But there are stipulations against that and regulations that are sometimes outside of local government control. And so a lot of times we're willing to pay more for services in other aspects of our lives, but I also believe that it should be, like everybody else on the stage, tied to transparency and accountability, like any government decision or budget. Unfortunately, we don't get as much funding as other counties in our surrounding districts, and so the district is left to scramble with what we have to meet the needs of all students, and there are great needs in our county. So I think the increase should be not only with the 4%, but also with pushing for bringing industry into our county so that we're able to gain taxes from that as well.
Thank you.
I did not vote for the latest tax increase, but I do understand the necessity of it. I think our county, we have a hard time getting out from underneath our ways of thinking, and we can't have it all ways. And we want to stay rural, but we don't want to raise taxes. And we want to pay our teachers more, but we don't want to raise taxes. And we don't want industry, but we don't want to pay more in property taxes. And I think sources of revenue need to be looked at and brought into our county. Bullitt and Shelby are kicking our butts when it comes to recruiting businesses that fund their schools. Go look at Shelby and Bullitt County and some of their schools and what they're able to do in those counties because they have recruited businesses to come and move there. It's a huge difference between what we have, and we can't have it always. We've got to figure out what we're willing to give on.
Thank you.
I've heard a very similar message at the board meetings in the last 6 months or so as we've been leading up to this decision. I agree with the idea of bringing in more industry, more business, more opportunities for different streams of revenue in the economy that we have. But as far as how we're going to use the money that we've already allocated and the increase that we've just done, I feel like the 4% was already accounted for, and so I'm not sure that's it. And that was something that I'm trying to platform or run my platform on is transparency and accountability to how those dollars are being used. And so I would say that I would like to look at what that money is being used for, and how did we decide? Excuse me. How did we decide on that 4% number in order to be able to account for that money?
What is your plan? We just talked about this. What is your plan to address the teacher shortage?
Well, last year there was a committee formed with parents and teachers and community members to try to figure out a way to retain and recruit teachers, which is really difficult to do right now. National crisis, it really is. And one of those things was to increase salaries, which we did do. But another thought is making sure that we value what we have, value the educators that we already have in our classrooms, and trying to appreciate the work that they do every single day. I think about the amount of time and just all the time that they have invested into their classrooms, to the needs of their students, and sometimes how underappreciated they can feel. But it doesn't take much for an educator to feel valued. It could be a note. It could be anything. And so I would just encourage you guys to really seek out your kids' teachers and make sure that they feel that value from you, because that will go a long way.
Thank you.
I think I am. Thank you for the question, by the way. I think I agree very much with what Ms. Nykirk has said. Valuing the teachers and supporting them as an administration, I think would have gone a long way in keeping a lot of our teachers here through the difficult last 2 years that we had. I think smaller class sizes for certain. I think sourcing teachers outside of Kentucky. I know there are great schools that are producing teachers, and those people need jobs. And some of them might want to move to Kentucky and live here. If they can get a wage that's good enough that they can live near the school they teach in, they would come here and teach. I know that's how some other schools find teachers, and I think that we should be looking in that direction as well. But primarily, making it a really good work environment for them with smaller class sizes, more autonomy, and less lack of support from the administration when they need it.
Great, thank you.
I come from a little bit of a different perspective on this. As I mentioned, my kids go to Goshen, and we thankfully are essentially fully staffed. So we don't see or haven't seen a lot of the shortages that we've seen across the district. We have wonderful teachers and high parent involvement. My plan would be to go into these individual schools and survey and meet in person with our teachers, find out what, from their perspective, what are their needs, what resources do they need, what is important to them, and what factors can we control to retain them. Salaries are obviously very important, and I think we all want to pay our teachers as much as we possibly can. Teachers are our most important investment. Happy teachers equal happy kids and happy parents, and keep us as one of the best public school systems in Kentucky. And
Thank you.
We got to close the gap somehow between us and Jefferson County. How we do that? There's been different committees, as Andrea had mentioned. We don't know the answer yet. We're working on it. A couple of things that the superintendent is doing is he's making our district a desired school district, and I think he has going to have a lot of success in the future doing so. So that's going to draw the teachers coming to our district to teach, regardless of the difference in income. I also suggested about working with the county and stop giving these breaks to different businesses that come in here, tax exempt businesses, so we can draw from their income to pay our teachers the amount they need through the tax revenue that we're lacking because we have nothing but residential tax revenues coming in, and that just doesn't buy it. And reduce the tuition for the teachers and their kids to zero instead of what we're allowing them right now.
Before that, I'm a small business owner, and it is difficult to attract people to my small business in a rural area, and I see Oldham County Schools somewhat like that. I can't pay what the large firms do. I don't have the exact same benefits, and so how I attract employees is by the culture, and I think right now school is a pretty negative culture at times. The relationship between the community and the school board can be very negative, and I'd like to bring a forward, positive thinking view back to the school board and the community relationship there. But I'm also just really encouraged by the great teachers that we have that have stayed here, and I think, again, we need to value them. I wish I had a solution for this national crisis. I don't, but I think we need to dive in and just make it a safe environment for teachers, for students, and something that's focused on academic excellence.
So I feel like I have a lot to say about this, being a former teacher that stepped away at the end of last year, but I'm a believer that when people feel valued, they will stay and people will want to come and work here. CEOs from various companies like the Container Store and Chick-fil-A have a motto that if they have happy employees, they'll have happy customers. As a school board member, I feel like I would want to encourage that motto to be adopted by our superintendent, because that's kind of the role of school board, is to support our superintendent and families. And so happy people will also work harder. We'll have happy families and happy kids and quality education. The thing is how. And so we do need to pay teachers more. We also need to give them more time and trust. That is one of the main reasons why teachers are walking away. That is, they feel like they never have time and there is a lack of trust. So how do we build that? And that's something that I'm hoping to bring as a school board member.
Thank you.
The board continues to listen to suggestions from the Retention and Recruitment Committee that was formed last year by Dr. Radford. And they met several times, brainstormed, and presented us with a variety of items that they thought might be helpful. One of them was reducing tuition that are teachers that live out of county but want their kids to come to our schools. We got that reduced by more than half with the hope that it would be zero for next year. There are some simple things that can be done. I think our parents should do a better job of supporting our teachers instead of at times on Facebook dragging and tearing them down, instead of taking 4 minutes to send an email and ask for an explanation about something. And it's difficult when prospective employees go on Facebook and look at some of the negative posts about our school system and our teachers.
Thank you.
I too have some strong feelings about teacher retention and recruitment. In 2018, there was a study that came out in the Harvard Business Review that Bill and Melinda Gates had done a study in 2013 of 20,000 teachers. They found that 6 out of 10 teachers went directly into teaching after earning their undergraduate and graduate degrees. They taught because they wanted to provide a valuable public service, and 85% of teachers said that they went into the profession because they wanted to make a difference in children's lives beyond writing, reading, and arithmetic. Additionally, in the Harvard Graduate School in March of 2022, they did a study, they did a gathering, and they found that amid the extraordinary challenges of the past 2 years, teachers have been innovative, flexible, and brave, but in many cases, they've also been pushed to the limits. leading to a well-documented concerns about burnout and large-scale exodus from the teaching profession. And they're asking, did the pandemic add new pressures or just exacerbate the existing ones? So as a former teacher, I think I would ask.
Thank you.
Everybody knows we need to give our teachers more pay. But you got to listen to the teachers also. The teachers are begging for them to have their planning hours back. I don't think people realize that their time's gone that they dedicate to doing work at the school and not while they're at home. The teachers want a voice. They tell me that all the time. No one's listening to them. I agree. We need to give free county tuition to other teachers coming in from out of county. Since COVID, prior to COVID, teachers were like firefighters, right? Everybody loved them. After COVID, teachers were like cops. No one liked them. So we need to change that culture and bring the love back to the teachers. And I am going to try to do that where I can see both sides of the aisle being in the schools.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so our next question will begin with Lisa. Social emotional learning, or SEL, curricula have been implemented across the county from the Federal Department of Education, the country, which is requiring teachers to discuss mental health issues with students. What is your opinion on SEL, and would you support a parent's right to opt their child out of it?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. SEL is dangerous. It started out as a good thing. The history of SEL, it was a therapeutic discourse between a client and a psychologist or a therapist, and it morphed into a therapeutic setting in an uncontrolled atmosphere in a classroom with a teacher and no therapist in sight. And it's damaging children. Many people think it's criminal, and it's having an unhealthy impact. And I think we need to look very critically at removing things like Character Strong, anything by CASEL, CASEL, in our school curriculum that's embedded. It's embedded in a lot of classes, not just the Character Strong program, and it's harmful. And I could go into a lot of detail. I could talk for a couple of hours about this. But I think we need to listen to parents, whatever they decide they want for their children, on issues that have such impact. Thanks for the question.
Thank you.
So I think there's many facets to this question. We have a national program that has been implemented to our district, and a lot of money and time has been spent on it by teachers and other staff. It has to be said that, children's needs socially and emotionally are very important. And being that our children spend 8 hours a day at school, this obviously crosses into that time. However, I'm not sure that SEL is the right program for us. We have teachers and staff that have attended board meetings and have expressed concern about not being able or not being educated on how to teach it, essentially. It is a program that was not developed by a mental health professional, and it's not being taught by licensed mental health professionals. So that would be my main issue with it. Thank you.
So the basic theory of SEL, social emotional learning, is a good thing. As Ms. Parrish said, I think it's being interfered with from a national scale through another agenda to bring items into SEL that shouldn't be there. Going to the basics of self-esteem, respect, and dignity, what's taught in SEL should still be there. At a board meeting about right before COVID, we had a group of middle schoolers come in, and they were each assigned a team, and it was very competitive. It helped them. It was a good thing. But now, as I asked the moderator before the meeting, if you're looking at the other agenda coming into this, no, I don't think it should be brought into it. And I think every child has a right to opt out if they wish, if they're going towards that agenda.
SEL is a big, scary, dangerous gray area. Children need social emotional skills, and so they do learn those at school. It's important. If they were isolated and they were not at school, they wouldn't gain those skills. I'm also a foster parent, and I realize that not everybody has supportive parents at home, and they find that at school. So teachers become a natural therapist at times, but I don't want a teacher being my child's therapist. I appreciate that my teachers teach my children the core subjects, and I should be allowed to opt out of that. But I do think there are some important things, like you said, self-respect, that people learn, respecting others in true social emotional learning. But the programming has become an alternate agenda, and that's where it's dangerous.
So I first would want to ask questions if a parent wanted to opt out of SEL. Having personally taught the current curriculum here in Oldham County, in the curriculum, it taught students study habits and how to reduce anxiety. It taught how to advocate for themselves, how to goal set and plan for the future. So I would want to know what specific issues a parent might have with a particular curriculum. We also know that children with strong social emotional skills learn well and achieve inside the classroom and outside the classroom. There's a huge push for mental health right now. Kentucky Board of Education met the last few weeks or few days, and that is a main issue for them. So I believe that there are creative solutions in approaching this. I also believe that parents should be able to voice their concerns, but all parties should come to the table with a problem-solving mindset, and that teachers are experts in their field and can adequately present the curriculum and the standards.
I agree in the original components of social emotional learning. Is it bad that our kids learn about courage or standing up for themselves or self-advocating? No. When other social topics are included in those, it's a bit much. I think if there are lessons that need to be reviewed by committee, perhaps, that is made up of mental health consultants in our schools and parents, then by all means. But I don't think overall the social emotional learning basics are bad for our kids. Obviously, the people in this room and the people on this stage are heavily involved in their children's lives, and that is not the case for a lot of the kids in our school system. And it is important that those kids get exposed to these kind of life skills.
Opt out.
Oh, yes. If a parent wants to opt out, I do think they should be able to opt out.
I just recently did a post on my website. And I was explaining the background as to SEL as what I understand, and I understand there was a little confusion as to where I stand on that, and I would say that I definitely stand against SEL as it is being documented, as it is being recorded. I don't think anyone can contest or can argue with the idea of teaching courage, teaching empathy, teaching compassion to their kids. My wife's a mental health therapist, and we as a family wholeheartedly support mental health and teaching character traits such as be kind, such as empathy and compassion. And we firmly stand behind that. As it was mentioned earlier, other teachers disseminating that information, teaching that information, I think is already being documented as teachers are ill-equipped and not prepared to be able to do that in the classroom, and it's adding to an extra layer of responsibility to a teacher.
Opt out, yes or no?
Yes.
Just want to get it all in.
Good teachers already build social skills into their class, how kids should behave, how to work with others. Parents should be teaching their kids values, opinions, and ethical decisions, not the schools. The schools need to teach more foundational skills. How much money are we spending on this program to pay for Castle, to give us this SEL program? How many tens of thousands of dollars can we save? This program is a one-size-fits-all. So how does this program know Oldham County kids? It don't. It could be made for Chicago, for New York, and it's all molded to fit every kid. Teachers don't like this. Kids hate it. My kids don't even do it in school because the teachers don't even do it because they don't like it. Teachers aren't mental health professionals that are supposed to be teaching it. But why don't we develop a committee of passionate teachers, like an ex-teacher down here, parents, counselors,
Go ahead and finish your thought.
Parents, counselors, and students, and come up with a program that we know our kids, that meet state and federal guidelines.
Okay, thanks.
Go through with it.
Thank you.
I think maybe I'm a little confused about social emotional learning. The way I've always viewed it, when I look at Character Strong, like you all said, courage, perseverance, honesty, respect, gratitude, kindness, responsibility, and cooperation were the foundations of Character Strong. And I don't think any of us would disagree that we would not want our children to learn these foundational things. And I do think that it would be great if all homes were equipped with that. However, it doesn't always happen. So the lessons taught should go around these things, not for a teacher to be helping a student with a mental health issue. That is not in their realm. And so those things should not be taught. And so I don't really see where that would be a problem. But I also understand that if a parent wanted to opt out, I too would want to know why and question first.
Thank you. All right, let's just take a deep breath. Finish round one. Everybody survived.
Yay.
And thank you all. You all have been audience. Okay, so we're going to move on to you want to take a drink or whatever. We're going to move on to the second round, which are individual questions. And again, these questions were submitted by the community. Okay, and they were addressed, most of them were addressed to a specific candidate where there was not a specified name on a question and somebody didn't get one. We just randomly picked one for you. Okay, so we're trying to be just as fair and transparent as we can be. Yeah, get that old hat out and just pick out a question. So, Ms. Crenshaw, you're up again first. Freedom of speech regarding public expression at school board meetings has been a very hot topic in the last few months. What is your stance on freedom of speech regarding public expression at school board meetings?
So it's hard to answer that question without knowing the passion behind that particular question. Having taught history and the Constitution to many 8th grade students, I do support the First Amendment right, but just as I've taught my students, there are parameters in a way to make sure that if my rights begin to intrude on your rights, then my rights now stop. And so that's a hard question to kind of tackle, because I would like to know why somebody would feel that their First Amendment rights were being taken away. And to make sure, somebody's not coming in blowing air horns and other things, disrupting a meeting, because somebody doesn't necessarily have the right to do that, because it takes the right of expression from somebody else during that time. So I support the First Amendment. I think it's great. And so I would ask follow-up questions to that.
Okay, thank you. Suzanne Hundley. Oldham County COVID mask policies, the interpretation of education and social development, the stigma the schools attach to the unvaccinated, and incidents of some educators verbally targeting unvaccinated students has done irreparable damage to countless kids. Knowing what we now know about the drastic mishandling of COVID recommendations, recently confirmed even by the CDC, please explain your willingness to go along with these harmful practices by way of your school board voting record.
Okay. Wow, that was a lot. I would have appreciated that ahead of time just so I could process it all. It is very easy to sit and say what you would have done or what should have been done. I completely understand the people that were against masks are upset that our kids wore masks. I get it. I understand it. Do I wish that we didn't ever have to wear masks? Yes. I had kids in our school system that were wearing masks right along with your kids. Did they like it? No. Did they get in-person learning when a lot of other kids were at home looking at a screen of a teacher? Absolutely. Do I think we should have gone mask optional earlier? Yes, and I voted that way. So while I understand people's frustration with it, it's also frustrating to try to put forth how important it was to keep kids in school in person, and we did that for 12,000 kids.
Thank you. On these. Okay. All right. Scott, Oldham Countyans. Is that a word? Oldham Countyans are hardly taxed, with average individual households paying far more in actual dollar amount than any other Kentucky county. We've heard the current board complain about the lack of funds, as they have been unable to stay within a budget and continuously demand more and more money from Oldham County residents, even as school enrollment has stagnated in relation to population growth. I submit that we do not have a revenue problem, but a spending and mismanagement problem. How would you suggest balancing the budget and getting the school system spending under control?
Yeah, I too am a small business owner. I own a few different small businesses, and so I do know the restraints and the need to be able to spend money in some areas that's more important, and to be able to put off spending and money in other areas. And so I think that first what I would do is I would look at where the spending is, where the money is being allocated, and try to look at a forward-looking budget. I would try to bring in more parental involvement, looking at where are we as a county budgeting money, and how can we as a board be transparent about how we're using that money. And so in what ways we can, I would try to cut spending as much as we can. I think that the other part of the question is how are we using future spending? Is that what the other part was? I'm sorry, you.
Sorry.
Was it the end? Okay, sorry, that's fine.
Sorry.
Did you have anything? Did you want to finish a thought?
I think that the biggest part is looking at where are we spending and how are we going to be involving other people in that decision making through transparency.
Okay, thank you. Joe, please tell us your experience as a law enforcement officer, SRO, and parent in Oldham County Schools has given you insight into the needs of this district.
I've been a law enforcement officer for 25 years. Seen a whole lot. I've seen the bad, the good. I worked in Louisville. The biggest thing that I took from Louisville related to working out in this county as a school resource officer was the trauma kids faced in Louisville. It was tremendous. I learned how to speak to people and handle volatile situations. Now, coming to Oldham County was phenomenal. Everybody waves to you with all their fingers up. Parents love you, kids love you, teachers love you. But I do think I made a positive impression to the kids within the school district. Did it ask personally too?
Giving you insight into the needs of this district.
Oh, well, working in the school gave me everything I needed. I seen before COVID, during COVID, and after COVID, and it's taught me a lot.
That's all right. But can you tell us about, is there specific needs within this district that you have identified by working in the schools as an SRO?
There's quite a few needs, but I'm not going to be able to get them out.
Okay. But we can contact you later if
Yes,
we have
ma'am.
questions, and you can let us know about that. Okay. Andrea, in relation to curriculum based on diversity, equity, and inclusion, on January the 22nd, 2021, you voted to approve U of L's OVEX student teachers in Oldham County Schools. You were shown two of the exact same presentations on the program. However, in the January 24th public meeting, slides about the diversity, equity, and inclusion instructional strategies were removed from the public eye. These strategies would be utilized by the student teachers. The OVEC program, per U of L website, encourages materials and ideas such as read woke, amplify voices of people of a global majority, accept people who identify as white, dispute status quo, social justice and education, and imagining a radical future. Why did you vote to approve this, and how will social justice in our schools benefit our students? And also, please feel free to correct any incorrect statements that this person made.
Okay, that's a lot. But I think the overall concept of that was to not to embrace every part of that and every book and everything that was all there for us to see. I think it was more of to try to embrace some things that maybe we need to embrace. We do have a diverse culture. We do need to focus on equity. I'm not gonna say equality. I'm gonna say equity for our kids. We do have to think a little bit outside the box when it comes to some of those things, and also for teachers to be recruited and have them come to our district. I'm not going to say that it's perfect, but it's going to be something that's going to help us maybe to recruit and maybe retain some teachers as we go forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Lisa, and could you just lean into, that microphone's a little short, isn't it? Sorry. Okay. Lisa, you stated on a July 5th post on Facebook in response to the school bathroom policy that kids are not at risk in shared bathrooms. 1 in 100,000 kids are rapists. Do you feel that the possibility of one child being raped in a school bathroom is an acceptable risk in order to have shared bathrooms? If not, why did you post that in July?
Okay, thank you very much for this question. I can tell you that kids are raped in bathrooms, and it's not in bathrooms that are XYXX bathrooms. They're raped in bathrooms in our schools. And we have a policy where parents cannot move their child from a different school than their rapist. This administration, this board, is not listening to parents at all. And I am not afraid of having a trans child in a bathroom with somebody else using the bathroom, because trans children are not typically the rapists. 1 in 1,000 type of person is a rapist, and we have them here. And children are raped in school. In Oldham County, the number one rape group is teachers, as we saw with the person that was just convicted here recently for 5 years. Okay, so rape happens, and it's unfortunate, and it's sad, and it's miserable. But I do think that if the parents want separate bathrooms by XX and XY, they have that right, and they should be respected. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Carly. There are growing groups of parents who are dissatisfied with the services that their disabled children are receiving. What are you going to do to have Oldham County schools give kids with disabilities access to the services that they are being illegally denied? What are you going to do to alleviate these parents' concerns?
The feedback that I don't have any experience with that personally, but the feedback that I'm getting from parents across the district is that is accurate. I think the accommodations for kids that have disabilities, we are certainly lacking on that. I have several friends that have had to pull their kids out of Oldham County schools because we are not offering proper accommodations to them, and they're now going to private school. That's a huge issue in my eyes. It should be a top priority. As a school board member, that's something that I would certainly dig deeper into and, find out exactly what we can do to get those resources and improve that, because that is a big problem here.
Okay, Patrick, as a board member of District 5, this is from a constituent, okay? You rarely respond to your constituents when they contact you. Your lack of communication leaves many people wondering if you truly care about the families that you represent. If reelected, do you plan to improve communication with the families of District 5? And if so, how?
Agree with that statement. I do respond to my constituents. We get hundreds of emails, thousands of emails, especially over the past pandemic and everything else. When a board member or a board chair responds, if it's the same response that I would have put, I just don't feel like it's appropriate to respond again to say the same thing that person said. I could be wrong, but I feel if the issue is addressed, why should I respond? I do respond to things. I've had multiple conversations with people, and I do care about the community and my constituents. I have an open policy where if you want to stop by my house, call me anytime, I'm available. Even spoke to some board members here or potential candidates here about what to expect as a board member. And I have just an open policy, open book.
Devin, according to KRS 160.170 and 160.180, school board members are not allowed to engage in any contracts with Oldham County Schools, either directly or indirectly. As an owner of a local business that you may be approached to sell goods and services to schools and parent-teacher organizations in the district, will you discontinue all financial ties and business connections with Oldham County Schools if elected? And do you believe this statute should apply to all elected positions at schools, such as the SBDMs and the PTAs?
About 5 years ago, when I decided that I did have a lot of interest in running for school board, I met with the school council. I also met with the previous superintendent, and I met with 3 different school board members to ask if this would be a conflict of interest. I was told time and again, and including last year as well, that the district buys nothing from my business, that I don't solicit from the district to buy anything. I do have a customer service person at my business that works with PTAs when they come to us, and they buy products. I mean, I own a business. I don't approach anybody. I know it's not a conflict of interest, and I'm not worried about that scrutiny. I'm certainly not in this for a financial gain. Oh, and the second part of your question is that should be extended to all? Yes, but I think most people or all people I've ever met that are involved in SBDM or any volunteer position is not doing it for a financial gain. And I think that's just a common sense answer right there.
Should have told you to put your seatbelts on. All right. So that's round 2. Survived that again. Very good. Thank you. So this is our round 3. We have some time that we'd like to invite people from the audience to come to the podium and ask a question. If you haven't had a question answered or you have some burning, issue that you'd like to have the board address, come on down. Courage. Well, yeah. Okay. So these are mine. I won't read your notes. So you got and just speak.
Okay, I'll try to keep this quick. I have 3 kids that graduate from Oldham County. I would say Oldham County Schools failed my kids. I have one that went to University of Southern California, so no idiot. My other one went to U of L, or goes to U of L, speed school. He has said that Oldham County failed him, that he was not prepared for college. And then my third child went to Murray State. Right now she's going to the community college here after leaving Murray State. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. I feel for y'all. My question is that my third child, as I pointed out, was on a full IEP going through school and was never given the accommodations that she truly needed. We unfortunately didn't have the money to take her out to go to a private school. She has very profound dyslexia and to this day does not read past the 3rd grade level. so she is considered functionally illiterate. In college, she has to have a human reader for all of her tests, and this is because Oldham County failed her. So, given that, my question is to everybody, if you could just answer quickly, is what are your thoughts on vouchers? Thank you.
Answer first. Okay.
District are you in, ma'am? What district are you in? I think number 2 should answer your question.
I'd like to hear everybody.
Sure.
Time for everybody, but we'll take as many.
So we spoke a little bit earlier, and so I just want to first say that I'm so sorry that that was your experience with Oldham County. Being myself a product of Oldham County schools, I felt that I was set up for that, but I understand that's not everybody's experience, and I'm hoping maybe we'll get back to that. I also know that our special ed director, Nikki Whitaker, I've worked with her personally, and she's fantastic, so I'm hoping that that's not going to be the experience for every child in the district, for sure. I also believe that competition drives improvement, and so depending on the stipulations of a voucher, I'm fine with competition. I also support public schools, though, and I think that's why I'm up here, right, is that school board members are supposed to be supporting public schools, but competition does bring innovation as long as school funding is not used is taken from those schools to fund vouchers, because that would be robbing Peter to pay Paul. So I do believe, though, that families should have a choice and that the schools are responsible for the kids.
I'll go too. I agree with Jessica. I went to Oldham County Schools K through 12 and went to UK and felt prepared. I feel like my oldest was prepared when she went to Western. I'm sorry that was your experience. As far as vouchers are concerned, I also agree with Jessica. As long as you're not stealing money from public schools in order to fund charter schools and vouchers, I don't have a problem with vouchers if you want to choose to take your kid somewhere else, as long as the funding isn't taken away from public schools, because public schools are required to take everyone and we are not allowed to turn anyone away.
Yeah, I'll go with District 2 as well. I would agree as well. I think that we are being given a stipend from the state, from the KDE, in order to be able to appropriately use that money for kids within our school district, within our, I'm sorry, I'm addressed the question to you, within our school district. And so as we look at using that funding, if we are not pulling away from the schools that we have and the responsibilities that we have within the county, I think that, a voucher could be appropriate. I too have a son that is having a hard time reading. He has not been diagnosed, well, he's been lightly diagnosed with dyslexia, but he has not received an IEP or a 504. And so as he is struggling, we as parents, my wife and I, are trying to help him the best we can. And as we struggle through that, it's helpful to know that other people within the county are also facing that same problem, especially coming out of COVID.
I think we all need vouchers, and we need them fast.
I agree with them. I tell you, since running for board, I spoke to a lot of people that their kids had dyslexia and left this county. It's kind of shocking to me because the federal rules don't designate it as a learning or a learning disability officially, that our teachers aren't able to identify that. Oh, I'm sorry. Ain't able to identify that early enough. I know Mr. Rafford has made some progress. I spoke to some parents about it, but if we don't give these children the building blocks at the beginning, they're lost in the wind. We can't wait to fourth grade. We have to do it immediately. If we cannot give the children what they need to succeed, then yes, give them a voucher. Go to where they need to be able to get the help, whether that's in Louisville or out in another county.
I have time.
Oh, do any of the rest of you want to answer that question?
I'm sorry if I misspoke before. I thought we were only going to take a couple answers, but now that we're going to do everybody, great. Thanks for the question and thanks for speaking publicly. I know that's hard. I also have a son with dyslexia who just failed his driving test yesterday and didn't receive some of the supports I think would have made his GPA a lot higher, and he's going to college soon. So I understand. I'm with you, heart to heart. And I think there's a lot that can be done for the 17% of kids in the American schools across the country that have dyslexia, and it starts in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade. It costs money, and vouchers would really help.
More of a comment of just something that might be of interest to you all that I actually learned about this this week. The district has implemented a new math reading fluency program recently, and my first experience with it was my son's conference this week, and it's just a new way to it has better data, it's more efficient. The kids have special headphones that they use when they track their reading score, if you will, and it also is known to be it can pinpoint dyslexia, which is something that we've never been able to use. So I was excited to hear about that. I'm concerned with your feedback from, your experience. And I think that as a board, that's something that we certainly need to prioritize and is very important.
So your question kind of inspired me to run for a school board 5 years ago. As I said earlier, my kids came from Jefferson County Traditional Program. When they got here, they were so far advanced in our program that it was just astonishing. I just couldn't believe it because I had always heard how good Oldham County schools were. So I spoke with the superintendent in the past. We were looking at different things with administration, and then COVID hit. Then we went backwards, unfortunately, as everybody. But I've had this conversation about bringing some type of traditional program to our schools now with the current superintendent. And we're looking at different ways. I really have faith in our school system out here. I think if you give it time, it's going to excel very soon.
A note of encouragement. I have a daughter with dyslexia, and it's been hard to have the schools actually recognize that or admit it. I have a short microphone too. But I have a daughter with dyslexia, and the schools, some of the teachers won't recognize it or even relate to me on that, and they say, quit getting outside tutoring. We're doing something different here in the school. But I wanted to share my encouragement that just today, about an hour before I came in here, I got an unexpected email about the Orton Gillingham that's being taught to my second grader. That is huge. I've been having to pay for outside services for that. And for the Oldham County Schools to be coming back around and realizing the effectiveness of that program is very good. And I think there's going to be a lot of parents that aren't going to feel like they have to go pay to go to Meredith Dunn or elsewhere to get these programs that are going to help our kids that learn differently. Orton Gillingham is just one of the different ways to teach children to read, and it works especially well with children who have a learning difference like dyslexia, and it's just a program that has not been supported by Oldham County Schools for a while, but it evidently is making an appearance because that just came out of nowhere today.
A lot of comments about, do you need to raise taxes? Don't you need to raise taxes? We got the money, you don't have the money. But what wasn't said was $25 million was given back to the state out of what we got from them. What my question is to you, we're under a SEEK formula, and it's been mentioned. How many of y'all would be willing to work with the board or with everybody going to Frankfurt? I mean, it's not something that you just talk about. You need to go to Frankfurt, meet with the people, because in the system, we're about 168th out of 175 districts that get money. And when the school board gives back $25 million, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. we had $25 million, we wouldn't even think about raising taxes. So I want to know how many, say yes or no, would go to Frankfurt with me. I'd be glad to take you. Oh, good.
Can I also add that I spoke with a Kentucky Board of Education member recently, and the work that they did, that was one of the focuses, was looking at the SEEK formula. So that is something that I will continue to advocate for.
Biggest problem with the SEEK formula is it's got to be done from the Senate and the House. And in the past, our own representatives didn't do us a whole lot of good. So we're going to have to do a lot of pushing, whoever gets in. I just need to know, does the board have your support doing this?
Sir, just to let you know, I already did talk to a legislator about that a few weeks ago. And that is what, supposedly, take it for what it is, on the agenda coming up this year to handle. But we got to be realistic also. Pike County is not going to give up their money. They're not going to give up their votes. And that's the challenge is if you're getting that amount of money, it's very hard to talk your legislator into agreeing to give some of that money back.
Great. Jefferson County gets part of that $25 million.
Hmm?
That's where it's wrong. So I just wanted to see if y'all had a commitment for it, because I will be calling on whoever gets in.
Interject real quick. So my experience on OSEF is exactly why I became inspired to be a board member that 5 years ago. And that is why OSEF exists. The Oldham County Educational Foundation is there to fill the gap in between state funding and our actual need, and that gap is large. That's why we have that nonprofit arm to apply for grants and to get community and business support to pour money back into the schools. We do things like fund the Pyramid Awards. That's huge. Those are $1,000 grants that go to teachers in the classroom that will directly benefit the student. That goes to nothing else but student achievement. And the SEEK formula is what got me so interested in how this budgeting process works and why I wanted to step up and be a board member. But it's very important that we change that SEEK formula. It's outdated. Yeah.
Mr. Dunson, could you share with us and the audience, you recently went to a meeting and you were meeting some legislators. Could you tell us how many knew about the SEEK formula?
I was at a meeting with a bunch of politicians at a PACE meeting. There was 3 House of Representative people there, and instead of worrying about work with those people, I talked to them about the SEEK formula. Those 3 knew nothing about it. They hadn't heard anything about it. So that's going to be part of this job, is educating them so we can get the money back.
Yeah, if I can respectfully say, I've spent hours on the phone with Katie Eade talking about the SEEK formula. Specifically, I've spent a good amount of time with Crystal Smith in the finance department. The way that she describes that 30% local effort, that $24,675,000, that money is a local effort. So as Oldham County, part of our skin in the game, if you will, towards receiving the overall total grant money is to give that money up front first, and then the 70% of the total funding is for us to be able to use. So it's not necessarily giving it back; it's deducted from the total amount.
That needs to be changed.
Okay. Right there. I'm totally willing to go to Frankfurt and talk about that.
Now the COVID
just
money,
checking out the
whole school's got millions. We got 300,000. So that's where
to
we
correct
need
the
this changed.
The message there that we're not having to go back and give that money.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dodson.
It's Robin Vessels, and state law does allow the school districts to impose a 4% tax on the property every year. State law also allows you to tax the net profits of businesses. I first made a presentation before the school board. It was either in 2018 or 2019, where I had suggested that this possibility be looked into to take some of the burden off the property owners. And it's not been done. I just would like to know how you all would feel about the potential about taxing businesses to increase the revenue for the school district.
Or are we going to answer this? Can we just all jump in, or we're going to go down the row?
I think that if you have a burning desire to answer, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. So would you like to start?
I would love to. Thanks for the question. I think that first of all, like in my own home, I look to my own budget and I go over it with a fine-tooth comb before I go outside the home looking for money. And I think the school district can do that as well. I think we can do some introspection on the spending that's already in place and hold some accountability there. And then there's a good working relationship with fiscal court and the schools. I think that a conversation needs to happen. Everybody seems to be in favor of bringing in industry to help with the burden. I am in favor of whatever everyone is in favor of, because the parents and the community should be the one directing all of this. And that's what they're saying. And I am all for parents and community direction. So let's do that. But then there's also the fact that the budget already had the SEEK money, the $24.6 million set up according to the audit. It was already in the budget. So it was no surprise to anyone. So I still don't understand why the taxes were raised and increased so easily. But yeah, I think we should be doing what we can.
Else would like to? Yes, Debbie.
Your question was specifically about taxing businesses. Is that correct? I am a business owner and I'm a property owner, so I have both. I have a lot of stake in the game here, and as a business owner, I do pay, employment taxes. I pay my property taxes on my business and my home. I would hope that we don't have to continue raising taxes on either, because that is what I think is the major problem. I have always thought a mandatory tax is what it doesn't encourage actual giving. I'm a part of a health sharing program where the fee that we pay every month is actually our donation to help pay other bills. It's not a bill that I receive. And I think just that mindset and that change that you're investing in something makes it easier to give, and you give more freely. And that's part of why I was successful on OSEF's board, or not board, but part of their program. I think that we should be encouraging people to invest back into the schools, and I think we can do that through a lot of fun ways. And although tax would generate larger revenue, I think that there's some other ideas we can look at before raising taxes on businesses and property. I'd like to have them addressed equally, though.
I respond just real quick. Yeah. So I moved to Oldham County because of the rural environment, the community, and everything else that's here in Oldham County. As the system is set up, we tax the homeowners here. There's not a lot of businesses we can tax. There is a loophole in our school code that permits a certain amount of development on houses per year. One is so we don't have to build as many schools. But if we're just going to go after residential homes for tax revenue, let's ease those standards so we can get more communities in the community, or more housing in the community. I mean, if that's the only way we're going to be able to go after tax revenue, then let's ease those restrictions as a school board. I just feel that our government doesn't do enough to attract commercial business in this county.
Could I add to that as well? I'm sorry to startle you. So the other thing that I wasn't necessarily aware of, but when talking with other people in the community, that step increases cost the district. So step increases in teacher salary cost the district $1.2 million every year. And we have to, it's that bar is constantly moving because it happens every single year. And so to catch up with that, we either have to tax or be really creative, or like Mr. Heel said, we have to bring industry into our county, because that's what, as Ms. Hunley said, is Shelby County and Bullitt County are kind of kicking our butts in right now, and they're able to keep up with that increase every single year.
Thanks for all of you guys being here tonight. I know most of these seats go unopposed, so having 3 or more for each district is impressive. Thank you. I really only have a question for the incumbents, and I'll be, my wife is actually running for one of the boards, so I spent many nights convincing her because I know she's going to do a great job if elected. But my question's for the incumbents, and it's really centered on what I'm looking for in a board candidate. And I hate using this word, but what I'm looking for is someone who's going to fight for what's right for our kids. And I hate using the word fight because it's not a nice term, right? It's not usually a good thing, but it's exactly how I felt what I was in the last few years with the school district, with the school board. And so when I say fight for what's right, I've heard a lot of people talk. I've heard Ms. Humley talk and other candidates talk about our students being in the building instead of being online and watching their teachers. That was wrong. Those school districts did not do the right thing. And I just think that we should stand up for what's right. And I hear a lot of people say we should depend on the experts. We should depend on our medical experts, our medical community. Well, they were wrong. And there's no two ways around that. But so my question for Suzanne and Mr. Kehoe is, in January of 2021, the governor allowed our schools to go back to in-person. Our school district decided to keep them at home for, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I remember it was a minimum a week. So I would like to understand, or have you guys explain why you guys didn't fight for that. Why didn't you fight for our kids to be in the schools? And my next question, and Andrea, I know you weren't on the board at this time, but it's really about the first question. I was needing some clarification on the bathroom question. You mentioned that it was a safety issue for you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I was not clear on was, are you saying it's not safe to have the policy where transgender kids can use the restroom that is not their biological sex, or are you saying it's not safe to not allow them to have that option? So, thank you.
Well, do you want me to answer? Okay. Well, I think what is really kind of driving this is I don't necessarily agree with biological males going into biological females' restrooms. Okay. That is not what I believe. But I also have to consider the safety. So when we have any of those issues, it is absolutely up to the schools to make those accommodations in order to give single-use restrooms and provide accommodations so that they feel safe. So it's not only just for the safety of all students going in there. It's not just for the minority. It's not for the, it should be for the majority. And we have to make accommodations to make sure that everybody does feel safe in using the restroom while they're at school. I mean, we know that that's a big deal. And so I want to make sure that I guess I'm just trying to, I don't want to tiptoe, but I don't want to make a policy just to be making policy. But I also want to make sure everybody feels safe in where they are in their schools. And sometimes that is making accommodations per person individually at that particular school.
That question, first part of your question, you want to address Suzanne and.
Yeah, I wrote down all my votes. I don't have that vote written down for that we weren't in school at that point in time. I have down that on August 3rd, we voted for high school and middle school students to return to school on an AB schedule and elementary students to return full time. And I don't have another vote in my records until August of 21. So I don't remember keeping kids at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't remember. I honestly, I don't have that down, Steve, and I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying I had written down notes of my votes and why I voted. So I don't know. I don't have in front of me why I voted that way. But I will tell you the votes that I made were for the 12,000 kids and whatever information that we had been given at that time and the recommendations that were made to us by the COVID committee that was made up of people in our school system. That's my answer. Patrick may remember better than I do.
I had to ditto what Ms. Hunley said. I do remember in the spring of 21, we came back, all of us. There was a week gap there. And Suzanne, if I'm not mistaken, I wish Mr. Schultz was here. It was something with the health department, the governor, and there was something else that was pretty much out of our control, bringing the kids back. The next day, they made a decision prior to a board meeting, and I apologize. I really don't remember what that was. It's been the busiest time of our life sitting on this board. So my apologies. But I'll try to find that answer for you. Well, I mean, I have been opposed to the mask. I brought that up meeting after meeting. I've voted that way. I'm not sure. It takes 5 people to approve things. I was a minority every time, so I voted for return to school.
I believe that was about insurance at that time, is why some of the board members voted to keep the children in masks. There was an insurance issue, and they were threatening to lose their insurance. Mm-hmm.
Look at their records or whatever, and
I can look, Steve, and I'll email you.
fair enough. Is that fair enough? Okay, great.
Well, I will say, Steve.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Heather. In all transparency, due to the mask mandates and the curriculum, in part, I did pull my son out of school this year. He is being homeschooled. My question is, a massive fraud was perpetrated by the CDC and the FDA and the federal government in general on the parents of Oldham County and the students within this county. Okay, in relation to masks, I want to know, when you look back, what decisions would you have made that would be different? And if tomorrow Governor Bashir comes out and says there's a massive spike in COVID or any other respiratory virus, would you ever put our children back in masks and close the school again? Because that can never happen to our children again. They were so damaged, okay? There are some of your answers up here that I am floored. When you said why opt out of SEL, that I would ask, I would want to know why. Your answer should have been, yes, parents can opt out. Parents are the final definitive rule within children. It doesn't matter what my excuse is. Firm answers. Will you ever put my child in a mask ever again? Will you ever close the school and deny him an education? Because when I sat behind the computer screen and I watched the fake computer learning and saw the curriculum that you guys were teaching my children, I was appalled. I was appalled. And I would like to know, will there ever be a mask in an Oldham County school again or on the school bus? I appreciate you all being here. I appreciate you guys taking questions. It takes a lot of courage. But thank you very much.
Is it okay if we begin?
The general question, I don't know if everybody wants to answer that yes or no. It's kind of a yes or no answer. But Scott, go ahead.
Thanks for the question. And what I hear in your question is not just masks. I hear what are the decisions, and similar to what Steve's question is, what are we going to do to protect the kids? And so my history, I did a post on this as well, and I identified in a picture of myself on my Facebook page that I was at the meeting that we decided on masks the first time. I was protesting in front of the health inspector's building, or the health department's building off Commerce Parkway. I wholeheartedly believe in parents' rights to choose, and the idea of masks that masking the kids at the time, there was a lot of information out at that time that was being shared, not only just on the internet, but within our local community. We have people who, like Dr. Rutherford, who was very vocal about what the information is that was being given to us, and we as parents had vocalized our dissent from what the current board had decided on, and so we. To answer your question, I think that yes, masks, but it's much deeper than masks, I believe. So I believe in a parent's right. That's it.
I agree. Parents' right.
Anybody else have a comment to make?
Go ahead.
Put on record that I will never vote to mask your kid, and I will never vote for not in-person school.
I will never vote to mask your child or take away your privilege and your authority as a parent in any decision concerning your child, including medical ones, including IEPs, holding your child back, keeping your child away from their rapist in school. Whatever the parent decides is what I will use as my compass in every decision I make.
So to speak, you sound very passionate, and so I kind of to piggyback off of what Ms. Nykirk has said. Being a teacher, I guess one of the things of why we would want to know why a parent would want to opt out is our educators are experts in the field, yet I do believe that parents do have a voice and that we're coming to the table to win. We all have the same goal. We want our kids to be successful, productive members of society. And if we approach it with questions, that's where everybody will come together to work towards the same direction. When if every single person opted out of different things as a management issue, that's very challenging as a teacher when your classroom is filled 31, 32 kids and trying to figure out who gets what, and you're already doing that with IEPs and 504s. And so we want to say we want to recruit and retain teachers, but then also say that every individual person is opted out. That's why I do believe that there is voice. You have the SPDM that you can approach that at a school level, which I believe that's what Ms. Nykirk communicated. So I appreciate your passion for your son, and there was choice in the homeschooling aspect, and hopefully we can come to an agreement to where you would choose something differently, but I understand where you're coming from. I follow what I feel like doctors are experts in their field. And so I would follow those experts. As a historian, I think that's a hard question to answer because we have the ending now. So I can't say one way or the other because I would approach it with questions. I'm sorry?
Hold on. Completely dismiss this. Now it comes out that it wasn't. Okay.
I would love to see that information.
This is not a debate, okay? This is not a debate. That conversation with them or anybody else, you can feel free to do that and do your homework and do that on your own because we don't have time for this debate. People.
Can I respond to that real quick? Just real quick.
It depends on the experts, but I was speaking more to the opting out of the curriculum because that was also mentioned.
This is an easy one. Yes or no? Do you trust the CDC?
No.
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 I don't trust any of them anymore.
Hi, my name's Blaine Anderson. I'm coming to you today not as a representative of the OCGOP, but as a resident of Oldham County, and I have a third grader that attends Locust Grove. I want to kind of ask a little bit of a follow-up question to what Larry asked, and I'm going to ask it specifically to our current board members, and it's a very simple yes or no. We talked about the SEEK funding and how I think it's almost $25 million of the revenue that's being raised out of Oldham County is being sent to other school districts. So my question to each of the three of you is, have any of the three of you had conversations with our legislators? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Not.
Have not? Okay, thank you. I think that's important that we have that dialogue with our legislators. The other thing, and this is, I guess, kind of geared equal representation to our candidates. Several of you have mentioned talking about the funding increases, the tax increases should be used for academics and towards teacher salaries and recruitment. Fair statement. I'm going to say, don't forget, we have a lot of other shortages. You got a lot of parents that are trying to get their kids into some of the after-school programs. By the way, they're paying, I think, $9 an hour. You've got shortages of bus mechanics. The only reason I know is as of today, I'm now a full-time employee of the school district as a bus driver to try to help the shortage of bus drivers.
Blaine.
It is very simply, many candidates talk about cutting unnecessary expenses. So to the candidates, how many of you have done a thorough review of the school budget? Show of hands. How many of you have done it? Not the school board members. I'm talking about how many of the candidates have done a thorough review of the school budget. No, no, yes, yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, we have just a few more minutes. We take one more question, maybe two if it's quick. Tell us who.
Michelle Elliott. Thank you all for being here tonight. My question has to do with, do you support the program presented by the Deputy Superintendent for the caresolace.org that she presented, where it was a third-party mental health organization? And from what I understand, they do not have to follow HIPAA laws. One thing that I have come to realize over these last 2 years is research is not done when something is presented to the school board. At least that is the way it looks from the outside, that research is not done by the members knowing exactly what they're voting on. So again, this is about the caresolace.org, the third-party mental health that was presented to the board back at the August meeting.
I can say I texted and said I wouldn't vote for anything until I got more information on it, and Miss Six can verify that I sent her that and asked for more information and said I wouldn't vote until I had more information. Because that's my concern too, is accepting the money because it looks good on face value and not knowing what was behind it, and especially if we're going to take it on for next year, not knowing enough about it. So yes, I did. I emailed and asked.
The same response. I've reached out to Dr. Radford, asked some of the similar questions, asked where the money was coming from, and asked for additional information. I was somewhat skeptical of that, but we have lost a lot of social workers or social emotional workers or counselors, and we need to replace them. They're very important in our system. And right, well, we haven't got that information yet, but thank you for letting us know that. Yeah, thanks. And you've been a great parent, attending every meeting.
Can I answer that real quickly?
Hello, everybody. So recently in JCPS, an appeal was made to their site-based decision-making council about a book that had explicit pornography in their schools. Unfortunately, JCPS thought it was okay to keep that book so that it could meet the needs of the LGBTQ community. Do you believe pornographic books should be allowed in our schools? There are several that we've been able to find through the catalog system that Oldham County has. Would you help to get those out if you don't believe they should be in our schools? And would you encourage possibly a catalog system for teachers in their classrooms who bring their own personal books so that they can be held accountable to not have inappropriate books. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I would as well. I spoke with the superintendent about what books are out there. I agree with you. We can't control everything. If a teacher has their own agenda, they'll get it passed, so unfortunately. But we do need to put some programs involved where we can monitor and catch that information.
Lindsay, my feeling was if I can't hand it to your child on the street and not be arrested for it, it probably doesn't belong in our school libraries. So, and I know, you and I have traded books, and I can just tell you how that went over. And I firmly believe the images in those books. If I couldn't hand it to your kid on the street and not be arrested for it, then I don't believe it belongs in our school library at all.
I totally agree.
Agree also.
Agree.
Help you root out the bad books.
Okay. And I think, I'll be honest with you all, I know some people are like book censoring and book burning, whatever. If I'm sure Lindsay doesn't carry it around with her because I couldn't get it out of my hands fast enough. The images in these books would absolutely floor you and shock you. Oh, you do. Maybe she does. They're awful. I can't even describe how awful they are.
One of the other follow-up questions that I had has directly talks about the same thing, about this person whose son had an experience in his class that says that was in middle school teacher, and they kept a personal library in their classroom, but some of the books included profanity, disgusting prostitution, gay teen sex, underage drinking, and in the meeting with the teacher, the administration about it, they were told by the administration that every student is at a different level, so they provide options. That was just from one of our constituents, and this was basically a follow-up to Lindsay's statement here. All right, well, that concludes round 3. Yay! If you did not get a question answered or were not able to ask, please take responsibility for contacting your representatives. You should know who they are now by the district. If you don't, on your program there's a QR code where you can pull up the map and find out what district you live in. And so you can contact them individually if you have something further to discuss. So with that, what we'd like to do is give each one of our candidates a few minutes for a closing statement. Okay? So why don't we start down here?
Last every time, so. Am I timed? Should I wait? This feels very official.
So you all have been wonderful. I have let you down. So we've decided that you've been brief enough, so just.
Sure. Okay, thank you. I'm really excited to run for this position. I'm not running against a certain person. I'm just running because I really believe that this is my calling and my role. It was the natural progression from the service that I've had on OSEF and Operation Parent. I really believe that my different perspective of having a racially diverse group of children who have a educationally diverse background is really going to help me understand different perspectives. I'm a great listener. I work well with people of all different types. I've been criticized before by some groups by having too many different kinds of friends. I think that's actually a compliment. I can get along well with a lot of different people. And so I feel like I'll be able to help bring a positive, communicative perspective to our district. And I don't have any comments against who I'm running against, but I'm just excited about this. And I think I can do well for our community and for our kids to focus on learning of the core subjects and to make sure parents are protected with their rights to take care of their own children as they see fit. Thank you.
I'm going to go off the whim here. I had a speech made out, and I'll use both of them. But in my bio here tonight, one of the things I want to ensure that your children's education success is my top priority. Knowledge is something that no one can ever take away from us. It is a key to success. And I really believe that. I'm a very strict parent, and I think what a lot of people don't realize is we've lost that somewhere recently where our parents just don't care, so, especially during the learning system at home that we had a few years ago. I watched my daughter. I watched what was going on in that taped classroom, and at the very beginning, that was a wreck. I have to admit, we got better at it, and I think we'll continue to get better at it. In my line of work, I used to head up emergency response. So I did exercises and drills for a major company. And the only way we can learn things is to repeat things and learn and repetitive. Again, going back to my children, when they came out here initially, they were so far behind. And I knew then that we had to change things. There are several things I just don't understand. When a child is given 2 and 3 and 4 times chances to take a test, that's not right. You should be graded on your initial test. When you get later in life, people aren't going to let you take it over again. I'm here to do some minor changes. I think we can tweak things. The superintendent has just reached out to a company called the Studer Educational Group, and it's being funded right now by some excess funds. We're not paying for anything, if I'm correct, for 2 years, and it's an exploratory program. But this program is going to look at different things. It's going to help our teachers, and let me get back to my notes here. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. So it's Studer, and they'll assist us in strategic planning, employee and parent engagement, implementing a strategic plan that will improve the system and processes. So I've already reached out to some of my biggest opponents who hate me, that reach out, that dislike every decision I've made, and I've asked them to volunteer to be part of this committee. We spoke about this committee in a special call meeting a couple weeks ago, and and I challenged the superintendent to reach out to these people to grab them and hear everybody's view, not only the great students we have, the great parents, but the parents who think everything is wrong. So I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm here to serve the district, to continue to improve it, and I think we got some great things coming.
So I am so excited about the opportunity to potentially represent Oldham County in District 5. My husband and I moved out here 8 years ago from St. Matthews so that our kids could attend these wonderful public schools in Oldham County. There are many issues that I'm passionate about to improve our system, including teacher and staff retention, researching current curriculum, parents' choice with issues such as masking, district transparency of resources, bridging the gap between the board and the community, that's a big one, and so much more. I truly believe that I can make a difference in being a fixture in our school district. My mom was a school administrator for almost 20 years, and I saw firsthand the difference that she made in students' lives. I still have people that will come up to me today and will mention her and what a difference she made in their life. I'm passionate about doing the same in Oldham County. I'm known to be an honest and fair person, and I promise to listen to all issues and try to come up with solutions that best fit the needs for all students. I love Oldham County schools, and I love our teachers, students, and families. I hope you will trust me to listen to your needs and make decisions for your children on your behalf.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. We're not going to talk very long. I just want to tell you, I'll never sell your children for money. I believe in teacher autonomy. I think all kids should have a free school lunch. 17-to-1 teacher-student ratio should be the norm. Parents should be inside the schools whenever they want to be. Parents' rights, above all else, they're the only ones allowed to make a mistake, like masking kids. Okay? And I would like to hear that gentleman's question over there, and I'd like to answer it.
Well, let's go through
the rest of my time. Okay.
I've had a passion for kids over the last 30 years, having my own kids and having a lot of other kids in my classroom. I think I calculated about 23,000 over my career. And I can tell you that it's been a joy and it's been an honor to do it. I value exemplary student learning and achievement and growth. I'm a team player. I listen. I listen to everybody's opinion. Doesn't mean I have to agree. Doesn't mean I have to disagree, but I will listen. And, you know, I think that's part of the transparency is we have to listen to one another. And if we disagree, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay to disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And that's what I've been hearing a lot in my mind is we can disagree, but we don't have to all be disagreeable. You know, I think that I've tried to support Oldham County Schools for my entire teaching career. I'm just committed to keeping our public schools strong, whatever that means.
Besides Ms. Crenshaw, because I didn't know in the schools daily, I also am probably the only other person on this stage that has been in the schools pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. I'm sorry. I'm the only person that's been in the schools on the stage besides maybe Miss Crenshaw prior to COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. I see the issues within the school on a daily basis. I hear from the teachers. The teachers are begging for change. The parents want the best for their students. And I know this community wants transparency within the school board and lower taxes. I appreciate Ms. Nykirk. She served this community proudly. However, I believe we'd vote very differently on issues. I'm not going to vote to mash your kids. I'm not going to vote to close the schools. I'm not going to vote to raise your taxes until we cut waste out of where we can in the budget. I will never, never allow boys to use the girls' bathrooms. Board members talk about it, but they can develop the policy right now to address it. They can file a federal injunction like attorneys generals did to protect our children. These elementary schools have half bathrooms. With their policy or lack of policy that started in 2015, I believe, any male can go into a little girl's bathroom. This should be concerning to us. I don't want Loudoun County, Virginia here. And another thing I see with this board is at the meetings, you don't have a lot of dialect between the board. They're not challenging each other. It's almost like everybody agrees to the vote, and then one person may not agree with something, and one person may agree. We need dialect. We need challenging on that board to come up with better solutions for our schools. That's the Yale program. We talked about it. In elementary, everything Ms. Nykirk said is correct. We need that in children. However, I am telling you, teachers do not like teaching it in middle school. Teachers aren't teaching it in high school. It's a waste of a period that kids could be learning other classes. Kids with dyslexia or learning differences that get pulled out of classrooms. They could actually get pulled out of the classroom of SEL, but from what I hear, it's not allowed. So they're missing social studies or science. Speech impairment kids are the same way. We need to make changes, folks. But I appreciate you listening to me. I appreciate Ms. Nykirk also and Ms. Parrish down there. And I appreciate you, the moderator, today. Thank you. Oh, that's all right. I still appreciate you.
Agreed. Yeah, one thing I've said a number of different times, and I even said it tonight, I can't remember who it was, sorry, is that during the election seasons and nights like this, we hear different ideas, and we can take the best from those ideas and apply those ideas to going forward. And so, no matter who gets elected, there's only 3 seats available, and I believe it's 9 up here tonight. If I'm doing my math right in my counting. Anyway, with those seats, taking as a community, thinking about how can we as a community give feedback to the new board that's elected, and as we collectively come together toward making change. As a board member, I too will not raise taxes without looking deep into the budget. I think I was the only one up here tonight that actually brought the budget with them in order to be able to contemplate and think about the different programs, the different incentives, the things that we are passionate about. All of those have a dollar value, and as we apply that review of the budget, we can look at what are the best things to take from what we've been doing and apply the changes that we've been looking at as a forum up here and what the community is saying. I strongly support parental involvement, parental say, parental rights. I am passionate about involving people in decision making, and as we are all partaking in a constitutional republic, looking at myself as a representative to how I can represent you in District 2.
I would challenge Joe on his statement. I might not have been on the payroll, but I've been spent an awful lot of time in our schools since 2013. I grew up in Oldham County. My parents moved here in 1978, and I went K through 12. I went to Crestwood Elementary School, the old one, not the new one. South Oldham Middle School, and I went my freshman year to Oldham County High School, and the rest of the time that's when South Oldham High School was built, and I graduated from South Oldham High School. I love Oldham County. I moved back here in 2013 so my 4 children could go to Oldham County schools. Are we perfect here? Absolutely not. Do we try really darn hard? Absolutely we do. Dr. Radford is working extremely hard to make big changes to move our county forward and our school system forward and get it back to where we once were. This is not going to happen overnight. And anybody that sits up here and promises to make huge sweeping changes overnight doesn't understand how the school board works or what our roles are versus an SBDM. I have shown I can sit in the seat and make the tough decisions that maybe not everybody agrees with, but are what I feel was best for the 12,000 kids in our district. And you have to be able to make decisions that aren't necessarily popular, but are right. And I'm the person who's returning your Facebook message at midnight when you have a question about something. I return your email. Amy can tell you. I return your email. I'll watch the video you send me. I'll ask the questions. I will tell you how it is, and if I don't know how it is, I will find out the answer for you. I care very much about every single student in our county. I care about our parents, and I care about our taxpayers. And I would appreciate your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. All right. So I am a lifelong learner and an educator who has a passion to see all kids thrive. If elected, I will approach all issues with the same creativity and passion I approach learning in the classroom. I'll do my best to represent all families in this district and will support our superintendent to make decisions based on what's best for kids. When I began teaching 11 years ago, I could not get my foot in the door in Oldham County because the stipulation was you needed at least 2 to 3 years experience. That's not the case anymore. And this has changed, and we are having trouble keeping teachers and bus drivers, aides in our classrooms, in our special education classrooms, administrators, cafeteria workers, and other support staff. Given my experience, I'm the best candidate to address these concerns onto why this is happening and how to approach these issues with solid solutions. This has to be our number one issue with any leadership. And given what we're currently tackling, we have to have this as the most pressing and tangible issue that our schools are facing. There are many passionate people here on stage. They're passionate about your kids. I want to encourage you to consider who is qualified to lead being a parent, a teacher, or educator, a leader who values students and their learning, someone who was a product of Oldham County Schools and working with a team to make schools, teachers, students, and admins successful in every way. Thank you.
I'm coming back to the big chair. I just wanted to thank everybody for being here. I know it took a lot of, several hours for you to, out of your schedules, to come and be present. I want to appreciate anybody who has been watching on our live stream, on our OC TV channel. And really want to thank our candidates for being here, showing up. Talk about courage. Said, I am not running for school board. It's a hard job. It really is. And just want to thank you all for doing that. I want to wish you all the best of luck. I hope everybody, even if you're not successful in this particular endeavor, that you would continue to have some kind of input to the board, with the board, and the schools and the teachers. So with that, we're just about right on time, which is kind of unusual. But thank you again. If for some reason you did not get your question answered or to your satisfaction or anything like that, please contact your particular candidate or any of them for that matter. You've got their information, and I'm sure that they'll be glad to address your concerns. Okay? So with that, I want to thank you again, and have a pleasant evening. Please be careful going home. I believe we have some security out there in the parking lot for you too. So.